Hello YouTube. Today I did sort of a brown smoky eye. It's a combination of 3 browns and it fades from darkest to lightest, or from lightest to darkest, excuse me. And it has sort of a buttercream, I call it buttercream, highlight color, muted mauvey pink lips, and blush that was not altogether seen, just a rosy sheen on the apples of the cheeks. And I made my face look extremely long today for a reason. Today is the first of my Infamous Landladies or Infamous Madam series, and I chose to do Norma Wallace for my first. Norma Wallace was New Orleans' last madam. I'm sure they have those, those whores that, have those massage parlors or escort services in New Orleans now, but Norma was the last madam to run a high-class establishment. She was in business for over 42 years. And her address was in the French Quarter for her bordello. It was 1026 Conti Street, and it's still there. So this is the photo that I got inspiration from of Norma Wallace. It's from the book The Last Madam, A Life in the New Orleans Underworld, and it is about her life. She was an amazing woman, and like I said, this picture was from her 1954 grand jury appearance. You can't see a lot of color photos of Norma because there weren't many. This wasn't in color. There was one in the courtroom where they made her take off her trademark dark glasses, and you could see that she had brown tones on, so I took inspiration from that also. So yeah, I hope you like it, and to finish this look off, I would just do, if I had a white wig here, I would have, roller set it and cut it and styled it and actually did the whole character, but I don't have a white wig and I couldn't find one here. I still don't know where all the wig shops are in Pittsburgh and stuff. So, like I said, this is the first of my Infamous Landlady series with Norma Wallace, and I hope you enjoy it. So if you want to see how this infamous landlady who was in the business of pleasure for over 42 years did her makeup, keep on watching. Bye. Alright, so I started with my foundation done, my brows drawn on, and I did contour already. Norma Wallace had a very, very long face. She had very high cheekbones and a long, long jawline. So I contoured to make my cheeks appear higher than they are, and I contoured around and cut off a lot of my face so I can have that long, thin face that Norma Wallace had. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, oh good lord, I went to Ulta and I went to get NYX Jumbo Pencil in a brown tone. Well, I picked it up, but they never charged me for it and they didn't put it in the bag, so no harm, no foul. So I'm going to take a NYX, it's just a NYX pencil, brown pencil. I'm going to do it on my lid as a base, and I'm going to blend that out. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, a dense shader brush. This is a short shader dense brush. It's the MAC 213, one of my favorite brushes. And I'm going to go into a dark, dark brown. Let's see if you can see it. It's going to be this color right here from the NYX Crimson Amulet palette. I'm going to take that and go all over my lid on that base that we created. I'm not going to worry about blending out right now. I'm just going to pack on the color and do windshield wiper motions into my crease. So pack the color, windshield crease. Pack the color, windshield crease. You get the idea. Alright, once I'm pretty happy with that dark brown placement on our lid, I'm going to go into my crease and slightly above with another shade of brown on a fluffy angled brush. This is the MAC 275 and one of my favorite brushes. So I'm going to go into, and again, I'm using the Crimson Amulet palette, and I'm going to go into this shade right here, which is like a sparkly brown. It's a little bit lighter than our crease, or our lid color, excuse me. I'm going to load that on my brush. I'm going to go right into the crease and slightly above, like so. I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to go into the lightest brown shade that I'm using, again from the Crimson Amulet palette right here. I'm going to take it onto a fluffy blending brush. This one is the Sigma E25, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this hand at all when I apply. So go into that, and right slightly above that color we put above our crease, and blend downward. The most important thing is to blend this all together because you don't want it to look like you have like vampire dark eyes. So make sure it's well blended. Colors are all blended. I'm going to take a MAC 224, which is a fluffy blending brush, and I'm just going to blend around everything, around my edges and into my colors to make sure they're all blended well, and I'm using small circular motions just to make sure everything is seamless and the gradients of color is there. I don't want it to look like it's so dark and then lightens up. I want it to look that way to a certain extent where they can see that it's a gradient of color and it's fading into one another, but not where it's so harsh. And the last step for the shading of my eyes, I'm just going to go in with this, let's see if you can see it on camera, this almost butter yellow highlight shade, and I'm going to take a flat brush. This is from the Naked 2 palette. It's just a flat synthetic brush that I had on hand. And I'm going to pop that right above the colors in my brow bone highlight area, or where my brow bone would be if I had eyebrows that weren't, you know, artificial and drawn on. So I'm going to pack that in, give that highlight, flip it, and blend it in with everything else. Next thing I'm going to do with my eyes is I'm going to take the HD eyeliner that came in the NYX Crimson Amulet palette, which is a liquid liner, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to give that 1940s eye shape. Even though this was like 1954, Norma always used her 1940s eye shape because she thought that it heightened her sexiness and it brought attention to her eyes. So with that, what I do is I don't wing it out. That's the 1950s. It starts very thin in the inner corner and it gets a little bit thicker on the middle of the eye around the pupil, and then it goes thin at the end. So I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to do that off camera because I want to see it in my big makeup mirror. Okay, now maybe you can see how it gets larger in the inner, larger around the pupil in the middle, and then it goes thinner on the outer corner and on the inner corner. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my MAC 266, which is just a small angle brush. I'm going to go into the darkest shade that's in the Crimson Amulet Dark Shadows palette. Just going to go over that liner. My liner is dry, but it's going to act as a setting on top of that dry liner so it stays intact, and it's just going to make it not as harsh of a line. It's going to blend in with the browns, and that's what I want. I don't want anything harsh because this is a soft look using dark colors. After I set and diffused and blended my eyeliner line on my upper lash line, I'm just going to take the residue on the brush and I'm going to go through my lower lash line till about halfway, and I'm not going to line it the whole way because Norma at this time was in her late 40s, early 50s, and I don't want to take that line in because it can make older women or more mature women look harsher. I took a makeup wipe and I actually cleaned up the side. I want a rounded shape, not a wing at all. So I made that a little rounder on both eyes. Well, I can touch it up right around here and make it a little rounder. So I'm just taking and dabbing in that. Then to finish off my eye look, I'm going to take a mascara and I'm just going to apply it to my upper lashes because Norma never wore mascara on her lower lash line because she said it brought too much attention to her eyes, which she thought were spaced too close together. She loved her shadow looks, but she didn't like to draw attention to her eyes, the lower portion of her eyes, because it said it brought too much attention to her. Okay, then I'm just going to finish up my eye look with a little bit of concealer under my eyes, and I'm going to do that with a 224 brush because I like the effect that it gives. I'm not going to do it on camera, so I will be right back with the rest of the look. Okay, I lightly concealed under my eyes. I didn't conceal heavily to take all the dark circles away because, after all, this is when Norma was going to appear before the grand jury, so I wanted her to look like she hadn't been sleeping all the time, but I still wanted it to look like she had makeup on, so it wasn't going to be as harsh. The lines wouldn't be as harsh, you know, the lines and the dark circles under her eyes from being tired and whatnot. So I did lightly conceal them. You can still see some of the dark circles and stuff under my eyes because I intended for that to happen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my face. And I'm going to be using the highlighter shade right here that came in the Crimson Amulet palette because it's not a very stark, bright highlight. And I don't want it to be too bright. And I'm just going to take it onto a powder brush. Go under my eye area, up on my higher cheekbone area, in the center of my forehead, and down the bridge of my nose, and just to make sure that that base is elongated, I'm going to go under my cheekbone area slightly, and in the center of my chin, just to give that elongated effect and bring your eyes closer and make it look like it's popping out and standing out more than it would be. I'm going to make sure that's completely blended. Norma never was one to draw attention to her cheeks because she said it made her face look longer than it actually was. So I'm going to take a slight, light pink blusher. It's right here. Oh, you can't see it, shit. Right here, it's the lightest shade in the Crimson Amulet palette of blush, and I'm just going to sweep that onto the apples of my cheeks. And then after I apply that, I'm going to take a duo fiber brush. This one is the Sigma F55. Yeah, F55. Duo fiber brush, and I'm just going to blend that in with the highlight and in with the contour. I'll blend it almost completely out because I don't want it to be that stark because, like I said, Norma didn't wear a lot of blush. Now onto the lips. Onto the lips. Norma Wallace had very small, petite lips. So I don't. You know, I have big DSL lips. I'm not going to say what it means because I don't want to be vulgar. But my lips are humongous. So I'm going to conceal them out with a little concealer and powder, and then I'm going to draw on Norma's lip shape with it's more like a mauve color. I'm going to be using a mauve shade of lip because Norma never wore red. She said red was for hookers, and she wasn't a hooker, she was a madam. Well, first she was a hooker, but we don't go back to those days. So I underdrawed my lips tremendously because they're not as big, and after I muted them out, and I filled them in first with the lightest mauve pink color in the Crimson Amulet palette, and then with a little bit of a darker color to add some dimension to it so it would show up. And that is my Norma Wallace look. Here it is off with the camera. I hope that the light is good enough that you can see everything. And this is again from her 1954 appearance in front of the grand jury. So I hope you all like it, and yeah, it's a wearable look. You can tone it down with the browns and the darkness of the colors, but it's what I did. So there you have it. Bye.